Sarah stood at the observation deck of Luna Station, watching the alien ships fill the sky above Earth. The massive vessels looked like floating mountains, their dark hulls blocking out the stars she had studied as a child. Each ship was 10 times larger than anything humans had ever built. "Director," her assistant called from behind her. "The Hegemony Admiral is ready to speak." Sarah turned away from the window. She had been expecting this day for months. The reports from other worlds told the same story. First came the ships, then came the demands. Most species said yes immediately. The smart ones, they said. The communication room buzzed with activity. Translators checked their equipment one last time. Military officers stood at attention. Everyone knew this moment would change everything. Admiral appeared on the main screen. He looked like a cross between a lizard and a bird, with bright blue scales and 4 arms. His voice came through the translators as cold and mechanical. "Humans of Earth," began. "The Hegemony Council has reached a decision about your species. You have been under our protection for 50 years. During this time, you have shown both promise and concerning behavior." Sarah stepped forward. "What kind of concerning behavior, Admiral?" "Your people ask too many questions. You build things without permission. You explore areas we have marked as forbidden. This cannot continue." The Admiral's image shifted, showing documents that floated in the air. "The Council offers you one final choice. Accept Directive 847 and your species will survive. Refuse, and you will be removed from this galaxy." Sarah felt her heart race, but she kept her voice steady. "What does Directive 847 require?" "Complete disarmament of all military forces, destruction of all weapons research, relocation of 90% of your population to agricultural worlds where you will grow food for other species. The remaining 10% will stay on Earth under direct hegemony supervision." "And if we refuse?" Sai's never changed expression. "Your sun will be extinguished. Your planets will be broken apart. No trace of humanity will remain. We have done this before. It is not difficult." The room fell silent. Sarah could hear her own breathing. Around her, the other humans stared at the screen in shock. "How long do we have to decide?" Sarah asked. 7 of your days. Use this time wisely. Study your history. Look at what happened to the when they refused. Look at the Imperium. All gone because they chose pride over survival. The screen went dark. For a long moment, nobody moved. General broke the silence. "Sarah, we have to call an emergency session of the Global Council. Every leader on Earth needs to hear this." "Already done," Sarah replied. "They'll be here in 6 hours." As the room emptied, Sarah returned to the observation window. The alien ships still filled the sky, their running lights blinking in patterns she didn't understand. Somewhere inside those ships, beings with technology beyond human understanding waited for her species to make a choice. Her phone buzzed with messages. Her daughter, studying at Mars University, asking if the rumors were true. Her brother in the asteroid mining colonies, wanting to know if he should come home. Millions of people across the solar system, looking for answers she didn't have. 6 hours later, the Global Council gathered in the secure chambers beneath Luna Station. Representatives from every nation, every major colony, every space habitat attended in person or through quantum link. Sarah had seen many important meetings, but never one like this. President of the North American Federation spoke first. "The choice seems clear to me. We surrender and most of us live. We resist and we all die. This isn't a hard decision." "Live as slaves," corrected Chancellor from the African Union. "My ancestors fought against slavery for generations. I will not be the one to bring it back." Prime Minister Singh from the South Asian Coalition leaned forward. "With respect, Chancellor, slavery is better than extinction. We can rebuild. We can find ways to resist later, but only if we survive today." The debate went on for hours. Sarah listened to every argument, every fear, every hope. The numbers were brutal. Humanity had maybe 1,000 ships. The hegemony had tens of thousands. Human weapons could damage their smaller vessels. Their large ships could destroy planets. Finally, Sarah stood up. The room fell quiet. "I've been thinking about something," Admiral said. He mentioned 3 species that refused their demands. The Imperium, all extinct, he said. "Yes," President nodded. "That proves my point exactly." "No," Sarah shook her head. "It proves something else. If the hegemony was truly as powerful as they claim, why did 3 different species think they could resist? Why did they choose to fight instead of surrender?" She walked to the center of the room. "I've spent 50 years studying the hegemony. Their technology is impressive, yes, but they have patterns. They think in straight lines. They follow rules. They've conquered hundreds of worlds the same way every time." "Sarah," General interrupted, "what are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we're not like the other species they've conquered. We don't think in straight lines. We don't follow rules. When someone tells us something is impossible, we find a way to do it anyway." The room erupted in arguments. Some representatives shouted for surrender. Others demanded details about resistance plans. Sarah raised her hand for silence. "I'm not asking anyone to decide right now. I'm asking for time to present alternatives. 12 more hours. Let me show you what we've been building in secret." "What secret?" President demanded. Sarah smiled for the first time since the hegemony ships arrived. "The kind of secret that takes 50 years to build properly. The kind that might give us a chance." The vote was close. 37 representatives voted to hear Sarah's presentation. 32 voted to surrender immediately. 3 abstained. As the meeting ended, Sarah walked back to the observation deck. The alien ships still filled the sky, waiting. But now she saw them differently. Not as unbeatable monsters, but as bullies who had never been challenged by someone who refused to stay down. She activated her secure communication device and sent a single message to hidden locations throughout the solar system. Phase 1 approved. Begin preparations. In the depths of space, on moons and asteroids and hidden stations, things that had been sleeping for decades began to wake up. The hegemony had given them one last warning. Now they were about to learn why humans had never been victims. The hidden chamber beneath Ceres Station had no windows, no decorations, and no official existence. According to hegemony records, this level of the asteroid was solid rock. According to human engineering reports filed 50 years ago, it was uninhabitable storage space. Both records were lies. Commander Jake followed Director through corridors that shouldn't exist, past laboratories that weren't supposed to be there, toward a briefing room that no alien inspector had ever seen. The air recycling systems here were completely separate from the main station. The power came from hidden fusion reactors. Even the gravity was generated independently. "How long have you been building this?" Jake asked. "Since the second week after first contact," Sarah replied. "The moment we realized the hegemony wasn't here to help us, but to control us." They entered a room where 30 people waited. Jake recognized some of them. Admiral Santos, who officially commanded the Solar Defense Fleet. Doctor, head of the Biological Research Division. Captain Wei, who ran the mining operations in the asteroid belt. Others were complete strangers. Sarah took her place at the front of the room. "The Global Council voted to hear our presentation. We have 10 hours to convince them that resistance is possible. Jake, you're here because your squadron will be leading the first wave if this goes badly." A holographic display activated, showing the solar system. Red dots marked hegemony positions. Blue dots showed human installations. For 50 years, every time the hegemony gave us permission to build something, we built 2 things. The one they could see, and the one they couldn't. Every mining station has weapons. Every research facility has hidden manufacturing. Every agricultural colony has been training soldiers. Doctor stood up, showed them the biological analysis. Activated her section of the display. Genetic charts filled the air. The hegemony species all evolved on worlds with very stable environments. They adapted for efficiency, not change. Their immune systems are incredibly specialized but also incredibly vulnerable to new threats. Meaning what? Jake asked. Meaning a virus designed for humans would be completely harmless to them. But a virus designed specifically for their biology could be devastating. We've been studying their genetic samples for decades, taken from their diplomatic missions and trade delegations. Captain stepped forward. My mining operation in the asteroid belt has produced more than raw materials. We've built a fleet, not large ships like theirs, but fast ones, maneuverable ones, ships designed to do things they won't expect. The display changed, showing sleek vessels hidden inside hollowed-out asteroids. Each ship is different. No standard design, no predictable capabilities. They're built using human creativity, not efficiency. Some are ramming ships with reinforced hulls. Others carry prototype weapons. A few are designed for pure speed. Admiral Santos activated the next section. The solar defense fleet they know about has 47 ships. The fleet they don't know about has over 300. We've been building them in sections in different locations, assembling them in empty space between planets. Their sensors show empty void. Our ships are there anyway. Jake stared at the display in amazement. 300 ships? How did you hide 300 ships? The same way we hid everything else, Sarah said. We learned to think like humans, not like aliens. The hegemony looks for efficiency and logic. We gave them inefficiency and randomness. Our power signatures are inconsistent. Our construction methods change constantly. Our communication patterns follow no set schedule. She gestured to a woman Jake didn't recognize. Doctor has been studying hegemony psychology for 30 years. Tell him what you discovered. Doctor stood up. The hegemony species think differently than we do. They value order, predictability, and hierarchy. When they encounter a problem, they apply the solution that worked before. They have trouble adapting to unexpected situations. So we're going to give them nothing but unexpected situations. Our military doctrine is based on chaos theory. No battle plan survives contact with the enemy, so we don't make battle plans. We make principles and let our people improvise. Brought up another display. There's more. The hegemony's technology is superior, but it's also standardized. Every ship has the same shield frequency. Every weapon has the same targeting system. Every computer uses the same operating architecture. Which means if we can break one, we can break them all. We've developed viruses that target their computer systems, weapons that exploit their shield weaknesses, tactics that take advantage of their rigid thinking. Sarah walked to the center of the room. The hegemony assumes that a primitive species like humanity will react predictably to threats, surrender when overwhelmed, fight conventionally when cornered, follow the same patterns as every other species they've conquered. She smiled grimly. They've never encountered a species that treats impossible odds as a challenge instead of a death sentence. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. This is insane. Even with all this preparation, they still outnumber us 10-1. Yes, Sarah nodded. But they're counting on us thinking like them. They expect us to calculate odds and surrender when the numbers look bad. They don't understand that humans have won impossible fights before. Captain activated a historical display. Thermopylae, the Battle of Britain, Stalingrad, Drift. Humans have a long history of refusing to lose even when logic says we should. Admiral Santos added her own examples. The American Revolution, the Winter War, the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. We don't just fight when we can win. We fight when fighting is the right thing to do. Doctor brought up psychological profiles. The hegemony species have been slaves so long, they've forgotten what freedom feels like. They can't understand why anyone would choose possible death over certain slavery. That's their weakness. Sarah looked around the room. The Global Council needs to understand something. This isn't a choice between surrender and suicide. This is a choice between slavery and the chance to remain human. Jake studied the displays showing hidden fleets, secret weapons, and detailed intelligence on enemy weaknesses. How many people know about all this? Across the entire solar system, about 10,000 people have full knowledge. Another 100,000 know pieces. Everyone else knows nothing. That's a lot of people keeping a big secret. Sarah's expression grew serious. Jake, my daughter died 5 years ago during a routine medical procedure performed by hegemony doctors. Son was killed in an industrial accident at a facility run by their engineers. Wife disappeared after asking too many questions about their mining quotas. Santos lost her brother when he refused to hand over his research on faster-than-light travel. The room fell silent. Jake realized that every person here had lost someone to 50 years of alien protection. This isn't just about freedom, Sarah continued. This is about justice. The hegemony has been killing us slowly for decades, taking our minds, stealing our discoveries, crushing our spirit. They think we don't notice because we're too primitive to understand what they're doing. Stood up, they're wrong. We notice everything. We remember everything. And we've been planning our response for 50 years. Sarah checked her timepiece. The Global Council meeting starts in 2 hours. Jake, I need you to be there. They need to hear from a military commander who understands what we're really facing. As the meeting broke up, Jake lingered behind. Sarah, can we really win this? She looked at him for a long moment. Jake, do you remember what your grandfather used to say about fighting bullies? Hit them hard enough, and they'll look for easier targets. The hegemony has been the biggest bully in the galaxy for thousands of years. They've forgotten what happens when someone hits back. Sarah moved toward the door. We're about to remind them. As Jake followed her out of the hidden chamber, he thought about the impossible fleet waiting in the asteroid belt, the secret weapons hidden throughout the solar system, and the thousands of humans who had spent their lives preparing for this moment. The hegemony had given them one last warning, but they had no idea who they were really warning. Admiral watched the countdown timer reach 0 from the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. 7 days had passed since his ultimatum. The humans had sent no response, no plea for mercy, no acceptance of terms. Their silence was answer enough. Begin cleansing Protocol 7, he ordered. The first wave of hegemony ships moved toward Earth's orbital defenses, expected the attack to last perhaps an hour. The human installations would fire their primitive weapons, accomplish nothing, and then be destroyed. After that, the planet's surface would be sterilized from orbit. It had always worked this way. Lieutenant monitored the tactical display. Admiral, we're detecting energy signatures from the human defense stations. They appear to be powering weapons. Of course they are. Let them waste their ammunition. It will make no difference. The first human missiles launched from Luna Station. Watched them streak across space toward his ships. The projectiles were slow by hegemony standards, easy to track, simple to intercept. His defensive systems engaged automatically. Energy beams reached out to destroy the incoming missiles. The beams struck their targets perfectly. Nothing happened. Why are those missiles still approaching? I don't understand, Admiral. Our defensive systems registered direct hits. Leaned forward. Then why are they still intact? Before anyone could answer, the missiles reached his forward destroyer, the Swift Judgment. The weapons passed through the ship's shields as if they didn't exist and exploded against the hull. The Swift Judgment broke apart in a ball of fire. Impossible, breathed. Analyze those weapons immediately. But was staring at his instruments in confusion. Admiral, I'm reading something impossible. The missiles exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously. Our targeting systems can't lock onto them because they're not. They're not exactly real until they hit something. More missiles launched from hidden positions throughout the solar system. Some came from the asteroid belt. Others emerged from what looked like empty space near Jupiter. A few appeared to come from inside the sun itself, though that should have been impossible. "How many launching sites do they have?" demanded. "I count 17. No, 23. Sir, new launch signatures are appearing constantly. They seem to be firing from everywhere at once." The human weapons struck with devastating effect. Ship after ship in its first wave took damage from weapons that shouldn't exist, fired from positions that shouldn't be possible, using technology that hegemony understanding. Then the human ships appeared. They didn't emerge from hyperspace like civilized vessels. They didn't announce their arrival with sensor pings or communication signals. They simply materialized from hiding places that no hegemony sensor could detect. A massive human ship unfolded itself from inside an asteroid, revealing weapons that had been growing like a metal forest for decades. Smaller craft erupted from the rings of Saturn, using the ice particles as cover until the last possible moment. Fast attack ships detached themselves from the hulls of apparently disabled mining vessels and accelerated at impossible speeds. "How many ships are there?" asked. His voice shook. "The count keeps changing, sir. Every time we identify a human vessel, two more appear. They're everywhere." But what terrified most wasn't the number of human ships. It was how they moved. Hegemony vessels followed logical attack patterns. They maintained proper formations, approached targets from optimal angles, and used their weapons efficiently. It was how space combat worked. It was how it had always worked. Human ships ignored every rule of space warfare. A destroyer-sized vessel used Jupiter's gravity to slingshot itself directly at a hegemony cruiser, ramming it at speeds that should have destroyed both ships. The human ship exploded, but somehow its wreckage continued moving in a controlled pattern, releasing smaller explosive devices that crippled 3 more hegemony vessels. A group of mining ships linked themselves together with cables and spun like a massive sling, using centrifugal force to hurl asteroids at hegemony formations. The improvised weapons moved too fast for defensive systems to track. Most disturbing of all, a human command ship fired its main weapon directly into the sun. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a massive solar flare erupted, following an impossible trajectory that struck second-largest battleship. The vessel's shields, designed to stop energy weapons, couldn't protect against starfire itself. "Admiral," reported, "the humans are using gravity wells as weapons. They're redirecting solar energy. They're turning the entire solar system into a battlefield." Tried to process what he was seeing. This violates everything we know about space combat. You can't use stars as weapons. You can't control gravity. You can't hide fleets inside asteroids. "Tell them that, sir." The human tactics made no sense, but they were devastatingly effective. Every time's forces adapted to one impossible attack, the humans used a different impossible attack. His ships were designed to fight other ships, not weaponized planets and controlled solar flares. A communication signal came from the human flagship. Accepted it, expecting surrender terms or at least an explanation. Director's face appeared on his screen. "Admiral, I believe you wanted to give us one last warning." "Your resistance is pointless," said, trying to regain control. "Even if you destroy my entire fleet, the hegemony has thousands of ships, millions of soldiers. You cannot win." Smiled. "Admiral, you're thinking like a hegemony commander. You're calculating odds and comparing numbers, but we're not trying to win a conventional war." "Then what are you trying to do?" "We're showing every species in the galaxy that the hegemony can be hurt, that their ships can be destroyed. that their protection isn't necessary. As if summoned by her words, new signals appeared on the tactical display. Ships were jumping into the system, but they weren't hegemony reinforcements. Admiral reported, "We're detecting vessels joining the human formation, and ships, and, sir, I'm reading transponder codes from species we thought we controlled completely." Watched in horror as representatives of a dozen conquered species arrived to join the human fleet. Some brought only a few ships, others brought entire battle groups. All of them began attacking hegemony forces. "How?" he whispered. His voice answered from the communication channel. "For 50 years, Admiral, you've been telling everyone in the galaxy that resistance is impossible, that the hegemony is too strong, too advanced, too united to oppose." She paused as another hegemony ship exploded outside the window. "But you made one mistake. You assumed that being strong and being right were the same thing." Realized that his carefully planned attack had become a disaster. His ships were being destroyed by weapons that shouldn't work and tactics that made no sense. Worse, the revolt was spreading beyond the Sol system. If other species saw humans fighting successfully, the entire hegemony could fall apart. "All ships," he ordered, "implement Emergency Protocol Omega. We're returning to base immediately." Admiral asked, "What about Cleansing Protocol 7? Looked at the tactical display showing his scattered, damaged fleet being harassed by impossible human weapons and growing numbers of rebel ships. The Sol system had become a nightmare of unpredictable forces and chaotic battles. "Protocol 7 is suspended. We need reinforcements." As the hegemony ships retreated toward their jump points, Director's voice followed them. "Admiral, you gave us one last warning. Consider this our response. We were never victims. We were just waiting for the right moment to prove it." Said nothing as his flagship jumped to hyperspace, leaving behind the burning wreckage of the first hegemony fleet to ever retreat from a primitive species. Behind them in the Sol system, humans and their new allies began preparing for what they all knew would come next. The real war was just beginning. But for the first time in thousands of years, the hegemony had learned what it felt like to be afraid. 3 months after the Battle of Sol, the Hegemony Council met in emergency session aboard their mobile fortress, the Absolute Authority. For the first time in 1,000 years, they faced a real threat to their control. High Counselor I looked at the reports flowing in from across the galaxy. 17 species had declared independence. 43 more had stopped sending tribute shipments. Rebellion sparked on worlds that had been peaceful for centuries. "The human infection spreads," she announced to the assembled council. "Their victory has given other species dangerous ideas about resistance." Admiral stood to address the council. His scales had turned a darker shade of blue since his defeat at Sol, a sign of deep stress among his people. "Honorable counselors, I recommend immediate deployment of the extinction fleet. We must destroy the human before their rebellion spreads further." Counselor and of the hegemony disagreed. "One world. You suggest we use planet killers for one primitive species. The cost would be enormous." "The cost of allowing them to live will be greater," replied. "They don't fight like any species we've encountered. They use tactics that shouldn't work but do. They've inspired revolts on worlds that accepted our rule for." High Counselor I activated the central display. Images of burning hegemony facilities filled the chamber. "The reports are clear. They have seized their home system. The Confederation has reformed. The Trade Federation has expelled our administrators, all because the humans showed resistance was possible." She paused as more reports arrived. "Now we learn that human, cultural, and entertainment specialists have been operating throughout our territory for decades. They've been spreading their ideas about individual freedom and democratic government. Our own subject species are questioning the natural order." General On raised a concern. "If we deploy planet killers against Sol, We risk turning the humans into martyrs. Dead heroes inspire more rebellion than living ones. Better to inspire rebellion than to allow success, countered. Every day the humans survive is another day their example spreads. The debate continued for hours, but the conclusion was inevitable. The hegemony had built its power on the belief that resistance was futile. If one species could successfully defy them, others would try. The human had to be destroyed, and destroyed completely. 2 weeks later, the extinction fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system. 25 massive ships, each carrying weapons capable of cracking planets. At the center sailed a vessel so large it had its own gravity field. Admiral commanded from this bridge, determined to finish what he had started. The plan was simple: destroy every human world simultaneously, leaving no survivors and no possibility of escape. Long-range sensors show the human fleet scattered throughout the system, reported his tactical officer. They appear to be defending multiple positions. As expected, nodded. They cannot be everywhere at once. Begin the bombardment. The first planet killer fired at Mars, where human colonies housed millions of people. The weapon tore through space at incredible speed, its warhead containing enough energy to shatter a world's core. It struck Mars perfectly. The planet exploded in a sphere of fire that could be seen from Jupiter. Within hours, nothing remained but glowing debris. Target Earth, ordered. But as the second planet killer prepared to fire, something impossible happened. Earth moved. Not the natural rotation or orbital motion. The entire planet shifted position, sliding away from the incoming weapon. The planet killer, programmed to strike specific coordinates, missed its target and exploded harmlessly in empty space. How did they move a planet? The tactical officer asked in amazement. Before could respond, the answer became clear. Earth's surface was opening like a flower. Massive sections of crust folded back, revealing the planet's interior. But instead of molten rock, they found corridors, chambers, and weapons platforms that stretched to the core. They hollowed out there, whispered. They turned the entire planet into a fortress. Earth's true defenses activated. The planet's magnetic field, artificially enhanced by human technology, reached out like invisible hands to deflect incoming planet killers. The weapons that should have destroyed continents were caught and redirected into space. But the human defenses came at a terrible cost. Each deflection caused massive earthquakes. Oceans boiled as magnetic fields shifted. Continents cracked as the planet's crust adjusted to the massive forces required to stop planet-killing weapons. Director watched from her command post deep beneath what had once been the Pacific Ocean. Around her, technicians worked frantically to coordinate the planetary defense grid. The displays showed the horrifying price of their survival. Cities crumbled as tectonic plates shifted. Billions of people died as continents collided. Director, reported Captain, now commanding the rebuilt defense fleet, we're stopping their weapons, but we're destroying ourselves in the process. I know, replied grimly, but slavery was never an option. She opened a communication channel to Admiral. Admiral, you wanted to destroy us. Congratulations, you're succeeding. His image appeared on screen. Behind him, the bridge of the showed signs of damage from human counterattacks. Your resistance is suicide, Director. Surrender now, and we will spare what remains of your species. No, said simply. You'll spare what remains to serve as examples for other species, living reminders of what happens to those who defy you. We choose death before slavery. As she spoke, new signals appeared on the long-range sensors. Ships were arriving from across the galaxy. Not hegemony reinforcements, but rebel fleets from dozens of species who had thrown off alien rule. The Resistance Fleet, reported the tactical officer. The Reformed Navy, the Freedom Force. Sir, I'm reading ships from 47 different species, all converging on Sol. realized that the human sacrifice had accomplished exactly what intended. By choosing destruction over surrender, the humans had inspired every oppressed species in the galaxy. The sight of Earth burning but still fighting had lit a fire that was spreading faster than the hegemony could extinguish it. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving surrender demands from the rebel fleet. They want us to cease bombardment and withdraw immediately." Looked at the tactical display. His extinction fleet was vastly outnumbered by the combined rebel forces. Even worse, they were using human tactics, now unpredictable approaches, impossible maneuvers, weapons that violated conventional understanding of physics. But more troubling than the military situation was the political reality. Reports streamed in from across the galaxy. Hegemony administrators were being expelled from hundreds of worlds. Subject species were declaring independence by the dozen. The carefully maintained order of was collapsing. "Sir," the tactical officer said quietly, "long-range communications are reporting that the Hegemony Council has lost contact with over 60% of our territory. The rebellion is spreading faster than we can respond to it." Director's voice came through the communication channel again. "Admiral, your council sent you here to stop a rebellion. Instead, you've started a revolution." Stared at Earth, still burning but still fighting. The humans had lost billions of people and turned there into a battlefield, but they hadn't surrendered. Their example had inspired dozens of species to throw off hegemony rule. The empire that had lasted 10,000 years was crumbling because one primitive species refused to submit. "All ships," he ordered with defeat in his voice, "cease bombardment. We're withdrawing to the outer system." As the extinction fleet pulled back, opened communications to the rebel ships arriving from across the galaxy. "All Allied vessels, thank you for coming. Earth is wounded but not broken. The fight continues." The holographic display showed the true scope of the revolution. Rebel fleets controlled entire sectors. Free worlds were forming new alliances based on cooperation rather than domination. The galaxy was transforming from an empire into something that had never existed before, a community of free species. But the cost had been enormous. Earth was barely habitable. Mars was gone. Millions of humans had died in the first year of fighting. The price of freedom, realized, was always paid in blood and sacrifice. Yet as she watched ships from dozens of species working together to defend human space, she knew it had been worth it. They had shown the galaxy something the hegemony thought was impossible, that freedom was worth dying for, and that no empire, no matter how ancient or powerful, could last forever if it ruled through fear instead of consent. The war wasn't over, but for the first time in 10,000 years, the outcome was in doubt. 1 year after the Battle of Saul, Admiral stood in a place he had never expected to see. The Galactic Assembly Hall on New Geneva Station, humanity's rebuilt diplomatic center. Around him sat representatives from over 200 species, many of whom had been under hegemony rule just months before. The irony wasn't lost on him. The humans, after suffering such terrible losses, could have demanded revenge. They could have hunted down every hegemony leader and executed them. They could have become the very thing they had fought against. Instead, they had built this, a place where former enemies could sit together and argue about trade agreements. Director, now elected as the first Secretary General of the Galactic Federation, called the session to order. "The proposal before us today concerns the integration of former hegemony species into the Federation. Ambassador will present the Republic's petition for membership." Rose slowly. The past year had changed him. The rigid certainty that had once defined his worldview was gone, replaced by something he was still learning to understand: doubt, and with it, the possibility of growth. "Honorable delegates," he began, "the Republic formally requests membership in the Galactic Federation. We acknowledge our past actions under the hegemony. We accept responsibility for the suffering we caused. We ask not for forgiveness, but for the opportunity to prove that we can change. The chamber erupted in debate. Representatives of species that had been enslaved by forces demanded explanations. Others argued for mercy. The discussion continued for hours, with passions running high on all sides. Through it all, listened without judgment. This was the hardest part of building the new galaxy, not defeating the hegemony, but deciding what to do with the pieces. During a recess, approached privately, "Director, Secretary General, may I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why didn't you execute me? After Saul, after what I did to your people, I expected to face a war crimes tribunal." Looked out the observation window at the space where Earth once orbited. The planet was slowly healing, its surface still but showing signs of life returning. "Because executing you would have made us into what you used to be. We didn't fight the hegemony so we could replace it. We fought so no one would ever have to replace it again." She turned back to him. "Besides, you're more useful to us alive. You understand how the hegemony thought, how their systems worked. That knowledge helps us prevent something like it from happening again." "But surely some of your people demand justice for what we did." "Many do," admitted, "and they have a right to. But justice and revenge aren't the same thing. Justice means building something better than what came before." Commander joined their conversation. He had been promoted to admiral after the war and now commanded the Federation's combined fleets. "Admiral, can I ask you something?" "Certainly." "Do you understand why you lost? Not the tactics or the weapons, but the fundamental reason." Considered the question carefully. Over the past year, he had studied human history, trying to comprehend what had happened at Saul. "I believe we lost because we never understood what we were fighting." "Explain." "We thought we were fighting humans, but we were really fighting an idea. The idea that people should choose their own path, not have it chosen for them. Ideas can't be killed with planet crackers." Nodded approvingly. "That's exactly right. And that's why the Federation will work when the hegemony didn't." Doctor entered their small gathering. As the Federation's first director of medical sciences, she had been working with former hegemony species to share medical knowledge. "Sorry to interrupt, but I have an update on the Genesis project." "How goes the restoration?" asked. "Better than expected. The bioengineering techniques combined with terraforming technology and human adaptability have accelerated the process. Earth should be fully habitable within 5 years instead of 20. Was amazed. You're sharing your most advanced technologies with former enemies." "Former enemies," emphasized. "The war is over. Everyone who wants to be here is an ally now." The conversation was interrupted by an emergency alert. Captain Wei, now running the Federation's rapid response fleet, appeared on the communication screen. "Secretary General, we have a situation. Long-range sensors have detected a massive fleet approaching the outer rim. Configuration unknown, but it's larger than anything we've ever seen. They're not responding to communication attempts." Felt a familiar chill. "How large?" "At least 10,000 ships, sir. Possibly more. They'll reach our border systems in 6 days." Blood ran cold. The deep hegemony. I had hoped they were just rumors. "What's the deep hegemony?" asked. "The original hegemony," explained. "The species that started the Empire 10,000 years ago before they retreated to the galactic core. If they're returning." Made a decision. "Recall all Federation fleets to defensive positions. I want you to coordinate with all member species. If this is another invasion, we face it together." "Sir," said quietly, "the deep hegemony makes our fleets look primitive. Their technology is beyond anything you've encountered." "Then we'll have to be beyond what they've encountered too." Over the next 6 days, the galaxy mobilized. Ships from 200 species converged on the Federation's border. Former enemies worked side by side, sharing technology and tactics. The diversity that had been the hegemony's weakness became the Federation's strength. When the alien fleet arrived, they found something unprecedented: a united galaxy. The alien commander, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline shell, spoke across all frequencies simultaneously. "I am High Archon of the Deep Hegemony. We have returned to reclaim what was ours. Your rebellion ends now." Stepped forward as the Federation's spokesperson. "High Archon, I am Sarah of the Galactic Federation. This galaxy belongs to no one species. It belongs to all of us together." "Impossible. Order requires hierarchy. Peace requires control. Freedom is chaos." "Freedom is choice," replied, "and we choose to stand together." The High Archon transmitted detailed scans of the Federation forces. "You cannot win. Our technology surpasses yours by our ships number in the millions. Your resistance is futile." Activated the Federation Battle Network. 200 species, speaking hundreds of languages, all connected by a simple principle: they would fight as one. High Archon said, "You're making the same mistake the last hegemony made. You're counting ships and weapons and thinking you understand the odds. What else is there to understand?" Admiral, now commanding a joint human task force, answered, "You don't understand what you're really facing. This isn't the galaxy you left. These aren't conquered species held together by fear. This is a family that chose to stand together." The Deep Hegemony attacked with overwhelming force. Their weapons were indeed superior, their ships more advanced, but they faced something they had never encountered in 10,000 years of rule: a galaxy that fought not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Human unpredictability combined with bioengineering. Industrial capacity merged with computational power. Former hegemony species shared their most closely guarded secrets. The Federation didn't just pool their resources, they transcended the sum of their parts. The battle lasted 3 days. When it ended, the Deep Hegemony's millionship armada was reduced to scattered survivors. The High Archon's flagship, damaged beyond repair, drifted powerless in space. Opened a communication channel to the defeated commander. "High Archon, the Deep Hegemony is finished. You can join us in building something better, or you can leave and never return. The choice is yours." "This is impossible," transmitted weakly. "Order always defeats chaos. Control always conquers freedom." "No," replied. "Love always defeats fear. And that's what this is: love for each other, love for our freedom, love for our right to choose our own path." 1 year later, stood again in the Galactic Assembly Hall. The chamber was larger now, accommodating representatives from over 1,000 species. Some were refugees from the Deep Hegemony's territory, finally free after of oppression. Others were explorers from distant galaxies, drawn by stories of a place where different species lived and worked together as equals. Admiral, now serving as the Federation's first Minister of Transitional Justice, approached her after the session. "Secretary General, I have a question that's been troubling me." "Go ahead." "Why did humans succeed where so many others failed? What made your species different?" Smiled as she watched the delegates, beings of 100 different shapes and sizes, working together on proposals for exploration, trade, and mutual aid. "We weren't different, Admiral. We were just the first to remember something every species once knew." "Which is?" "That being told you can't do something isn't a reason to stop trying. It's a reason to try harder." Through the observation window, Earth was visible in the distance, its blue oceans and green continents restored. Around it, ships from across the galaxy traveled freely, carrying trade goods, scientific discoveries, and cultural exchanges. The hegemony had given them one last warning. They had shown them they were never victims. Now they were showing the entire universe what free people could build when they chose to build it together.